Thank you. Let's start again. Good evening. Welcome, councillors, to the Meeting of Planning and Lighting Committee of the 16th of July 2024. Welcome, members of the public who have joined us in person, and welcome to those who are following the meeting via Zoom. As always, can those speaking please ensure microphones are switched on if they work, and speaking for the benefit of those listening online. And to the members of the public, if you're here to observe or speak to a particular agenda item, please feel free to leave the meeting once the item has concluded. On to the agenda proper. Tom, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Wise and Clifton this evening.
Thank you. Second, to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 18th of June 2024. I will propose them from the Chair. Can I have a seconder? I thought Councillor Payne first. So, Councillor Payne, thank you. If there are no comments, all those in favour?
Thank you, Chair. That's 9 with one member who wasn't present.
Thank you. So those are duly approved. This evening, do we have any declarations of interest for items on the agenda? There are none. We've had no requests for petitions, deputations and questions. So therefore, we'll move on to application for DMMO, reference RCC DC M19. Item 5 is to report 82/2024, proposed diversion of public footpath D79. Stuart Crook to present the report, please. I'm only reading what's on my piece of paper, Stuart. My erstwhile companion will.
That could just be a drafting error on the chair.
Okay, that could well be a drafting error. Stuart, we will rely on what you are putting across as being factually correct, not what's on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Committee members, this is an application for a definitive map modification order to add a public right-of-way to the definitive map and statement for Rutland between Cottesmore Road and Exton Lane in Burley. I will, if you bear with me, bring a map showing the route that's being claimed. If you're not quite clear, the sort of yellow line running north-south on the right-hand side of the map is the avenue. And that's Exton Lane leading to Burley. So as long as everyone's fairly clear on that. I will quickly touch on a few factors that members should and shouldn't take into consideration in determination of this application. This is not about whether we want a footpath or whether we think a footpath would be useful. This is about whether the evidence contained in the report shows that a footpath already exists. This is explained in more detail in the appended report from Routewise Consulting, points 4 and 5. The legal test in this case is the civil standard of proof, the balance of probabilities, that it is more likely than not that the footpath exists, rather than this is not a beyond all reasonable doubt test. I will skip through the evidence as quickly as possible, as I'm assuming members are familiar with the report. Routewise Consulting was commissioned to undertake archive research to supplement the research submitted by the applicant. Principally, she found the footpath recorded in the Exton Enclosure Award. Burley Parish was actually subject to enclosure by agreement, so there's no record of that in the archives. But the annotation on the Exton Award is strong evidence that the footpath continued into Burley Parish. There were also deductions in the Finance Act documents for the relevant plots of land, indicating, again, strong indication of public rights of way. No evidence of any subsequent stopping up in the court sessions. All in all, strong evidence of the existence of public right of way since the time of enclosure, and nothing to challenge this at this point in time. I should point out to members that despite the applicant having certified that all affected landowners were notified of the application. We did have some correspondence from the land agent for Exton Estate very recently, explaining that they somehow must have missed the notice and were unaware of the process. This I make reference to for information only, as they have indicated that they've suggested this is an objection to the process, but it's not a relevant consideration at this point. Members are strictly being asked to judge whether the evidence supports that a right-of-way already exists. I should also add that another of the affected landowners has made contact with us on a number of occasions to make points about the suitability and convenience of the historic route. These are, again, the points he makes are not relevant to this determination. They may be matters that the members wish to consider later, as there is a suggestion that the historic route passes some osprey nesting sites, being Schedule 1 Wildlife and Countryside Act protected species. I'm not aware of any legal reason why we couldn't put the footpath on its historic alignment due to this, but the authority in its wisdom may wish to consider a diversion if members are minded to add, in the first place, accept that the footpath exists. I think that's about it. So, anyone got any questions?
Thank you. Committee, questions? Councillor McRobb, I saw you first. We've got no microphones, Tom. Can we get away with just speaking up?
If you leave your microphone on for the moment, Chairman, just to capture the audio, I'm sure our technical expertise will see the issue and be on the way, I'm sure. But if members could just speak on all volume, Chair, microphones to us.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted clarification of our power in this situation, that if, after discussion, we are minded to accept that the footpath exists, can we, as part of the same deliberations, effectively make a modification to the route? Is that within our powers?
Yes, but that's with caveats. Yes, we can. Normally, we would only consider a diversion if the route was agreed with the relevant landowners. We do have powers to make compulsory diversions, but then compensation may become payable. That's why we don't normally consider diversions that are against the wish of landowners. So yes, if this route is unsuitable, the landowners say, well, this one is much more suitable, and we are satisfied that it isn't an undue inconvenience to those who have applied for the historic route. Yes, we could.
I'm not thinking so much of the landowners as of the osprey nest.
That situation would be...
Thank you. Thank you. Could we then propose a diversion subject to negotiation with landowners to be carried out by officers afterwards?
Yes, absolutely. I haven't looked at the route on the ground yet. Okay. I've only had all the information about the osprey sites from one of the affected landowners.
Okay.
So I'm really only going on what he said. The issue he relayed to me at the same point saying it needs to have a diversion, that he couldn't see any other suitable route within 300 metres. So I'm not sure what exactly he was proposing.
Okay, maybe we see when we get to that stage then.
Unfortunately, I think it's, yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to have some consultation with Natural England and find out what exactly they recommend in terms of protecting the sites.
Just to be clear, Stuart, if the osprey nests are discovered, you would bring it back with a potential diversion? Possibly?
It wouldn't be for me to decide that a diversion.
Or the authority could do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Councillor West, I believe you put your hand up next.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, same question as Steve. Also, is that footpath being used at all at the moment?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, there's no evidence of it being in use, even unofficially.
There's evidence.
I've read the
Yes, there's
Historic
evidence as far as
documents
up to the creation of the original definitive map where there's references to the various styles and gates since that time. And the fact that it was omitted from the definitive map,
Yeah.
no.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I may be asking the same question as Councillor McRobb was, but I noticed in the recommendations it says any decision to make an order would need to decide giving reasons regarding the alignment of the path. Is that the same as diversion of the path?
No, it is not. What the consultant is referring to there is if there is a small difference between the first and second edition Ordnance Survey maps. It's a very minor difference. I've forgotten the name of the spinney, but if you see, I'm trying to point here, towards the east end of the route. Thank you, Councillor West. No, further west. No, sorry, east. Terrible. There, just there. Cops Hat Spinney, thank you, Councillor Brown. He read the report.
I read them, I didn't soak that in.
On the first edition Ordnance Survey, it is shown hugging, as you can see there, the edge of the spinney. On the second edition Ordnance Survey, it's actually seen taking a more straighter line out, which actually take it through the field. There's no particular explanation as to the difference between the two editions. Ordnance Survey maps are, as they explain in the caveat, a record of a physical existence of a path without comment on the legal rights or otherwise.
So does this mean that we have to make a decision tonight about the alignment, or can that be left to discussions with the landowner?
Ultimately, it's for committee members. I don't see that there is any particularly strong sort of legal direction in the evidence to one or the other. I know which I would suggest the landowner prefers the first edition.
Stuart, could we just take legal advice quickly?
Please.
I just wondered if I could assist. So tonight, for the purpose of this committee, you're considering whether or not the evidence demonstrates that there is a footpath route there based on the historical evidence. In terms of the alignment of the route, you're restricted to the small bit that we've just discussed around that spinney, whether or not you consider, based on the evidence, it should be straight, or whether it should just sort of curve around the spinney as is shown on that map there. In terms of a diversion, that would be the subject of a future application. So for tonight, we're not talking about a diversion of it or potentially avoiding the ospreys, because we're just looking at the evidence as it is before you tonight. So any diversion would be the subject of a future application that would have to come back at a later date.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any further questions from the committee? The recommendation number 1 is to consider the application approved the making of a definitive map modification order to add the footpath shown in the appendix to the definitive map and statement for Rutland. 2, decide on the alignment of the route to be specified in order considering the minor differences between 1 and 2 and specify the width of the path to be recorded in the order. All of those in favour, please raise your hand. Sorry, I apologise. Please could I have a proposer? Councillor Smith, and a seconder, Councillor Brown, and then all those in favour. Thank you.
That's carried unanimously, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now move on to planning applications. And then we'll move on to report number 80, 2024 for consideration, land south of Leicester Road, Uppingham, Rutland, to modify planning obligations to change an on-site affordable housing planning obligation to deliver 5 80% open market value properties in perpetuity and 1 affordable home for rent in relation to application 2019 0525 OUT and 0296 RES. The recommendation is for approval, and Mr. Ranson is going to present the report.
Is it working okay now? Yeah. My apologies for sneaking in at the last minute and This is an unusual application, I think, to come before you. It's one you've already determined, or has been determined, with a legal agreement. It's a development that is well underway and substantially complete. But we've had ongoing debates with the developer about the provision of the affordable housing and their inability to find a registered provider to take the affordable housing on this site. This, unfortunately, is an increasing issue of concern, both locally in Rutland and also nationally. It's an issue that has reached the attention of the LGA and discussions with Homes England. But unfortunately, the outcome of those work won't come forward quick enough to impact on the issue that's before you today. The developer has been seeking a registered provider for this site probably for about the last 9 months, and they've been in regular contact with us, particularly since probably about February, March time this year, about the difficulty and what the options are in the light of not being able to find a registered provider. We've directed them to other registered providers beyond the ones they'd originally looked at. So there's about 19 registered providers that have been approached for this site, and none of them being able or willing to take it within the time frame of the application. So it's with much regret, I think, on our part that we have to come and consider what the options are for this site without a registered provider being in place. And we're left effectively with two options for the council to consider. One is to accept a commuted sum in lieu of the affordable housing provision, which would equate to appropriate amount equivalent to the affordable housing provision, or to seek the alternative which is recommended to you today, and that is to alter the mix of the affordable housing so it still delivers the same number of affordable houses on the site, which is 6 out of the 20, but in a considerably different way in terms of the mix of those developments. So that the proposal, which we've refined and discussed with the developer, is for one property to be gifted in terms of affordable for rent, and then 5 to have a discounted home market, housing market provision of 20% to it. So this is where I get into my, it depends how much detail you want to get into this, but it is equivalent to the offer, is equivalent in viability and financial terms to what is in the current legal agreement. So just to explain that to you, if you look at the current arrangement, we have 4 affordable houses and 2 shared ownership. So the affordable housing, you would generally expect a registered provider to pay 65% of the market value. So if you like, the developer on those is accepting 35% less than market value. And then in terms of the affordable for rent, generally speaking, you're looking at that having a discount of 30%. So 6 houses, in simple terms, that equivalents for the developer to a cost of really 2 market houses. And so the alternative proposal here is 1 free, except for paying for £1, and then 5 at a slightly lower discounted rate of 20%. So 520 is 1, and plus 1 equals 2 market houses, basically. So basically the same. One slight difference, and this shouldn't be a consideration for you, but the Community Infrastructure Levy regulations, and we haven't put this in the report, means that because the discount is only 20% on the market housing, that the those 5 properties will still be liable for Community Infrastructure Levy, whereas normally they would be a waiver of that liability for affordable housing. So there is, on top of that, a still benefit receipt that would come to the council. But I think on the basis for today, it's comparing those 2 for you. I'd like to say there are other options we could put for you, but plainly there aren't. So the only option, if you weren't to agree to the recommendation before, would be for us to go down the commuted sum route.
Thank you, Roger. Committee, questions for Mr Ransom, please. Councillor Andrew Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Ransom, on page 60, paragraph 7, it says the affordable home for rent will be transferred for a nominal £1 to an affordable housing provider. And in the next sentence, it says it's being transferred at nil consideration. Well, surely the consideration is the pound. So that is not right then, is it? It isn't being transferred at nil consideration. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that. Yeah. The consideration, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. Can I just clarify? The normal allocation is 30%, isn't it? Yeah. And we're talking about a 20%. So the number remains 30%, and the affordability. Okay, that's the bit. Thank you. That's. It is, isn't it? It's,
20 houses, 6 affordable. We would normally stick that sort of.
can I have a supplementary? Are we setting a major precedent?
We hope not. Our intention is always to try and seek that. As I've said, it's an issue that is becoming more prevalent locally. We know from the conversations we've had with neighbouring authorities that they are also facing the situation where they're having to accept either changes to the mix of schemes or commuted sums in lieu of what's in place. So there's always a risk of that. We will only ever want to do this as a last resort, and we would want to make sure that we've explored all possibilities for a registered provider being secured for a development. And we have the benefit that we obviously have conversations with the registered provider as well as the developers. So it may not surprise you that occasionally we have developers that come to us and say we've exhausted all possibilities, and then we find out that actually they haven't done that. So in this case, we're confident that they have looked at all the possibilities around it, and we wouldn't be coming before you today if we thought there was any possibility of finding one. But there is a risk that that then becomes the default position for developers, and I think we need to fight that as hard as we possibly can. The ultimate one of the consequences of this is obviously the lower number of affordable houses for rent that have been provided means that those at the sharp end of our housing need are the ones that are going to suffer from the lack of provision, and that is something we feel keenly that we want to do the best for as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Raymond Payne.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to do this to death because we did discuss it yet last night in the council meeting. I just want to register that I'm very disappointed that it's clearly a broken system that we're dealing with here, where we can't find these people to provide. It's not just our problem, it's, as has been said, probably a national problem. It's probably going to require a national solution, because obviously we as a small county can't do much. But I think, I'm hoping there are consultations going on between counties to try and generate a certain groundswell, shall we say, to make it clear to the new minister that that this is a problem, the system's not working, and unless some action is taken, it's going to continue to let down the people of this country, and not just Rutland. So that.
Just to explain to members as well about the one gifted house, we are in discussions with Uppingham Community Homes, who established as a community land trust, about them taking responsibility for that property. It's difficult for the council. We are not a stock holding council ourselves, and it makes it more difficult and bureaucratic for us to take over that property. And one of the reasons, again, that we're keen on that approach is it could be the start of a route of finding a locally grown solution to that problem by having an organisation that has, it's not just thinking about Uppingham, but if it becomes successful, then could see if that could roll out that model across a wider area such as Rutland. So, it's trying to make the best of a bad job that we've got, but you're quite right. The situation is that registered providers, are becoming increasingly, picky as to what they will go for, and there are investment opportunities available for them that are probably more productive and more efficient for them to use, which is why I think the Local Government Association are wanting to open up and have these discussions with Homes England and other parties. Like I say, it will take some time to find a solution, so also trying to find our own locally grown solution would be a beneficial thing for us to be contemplating.
Councillor McRobb.
Two questions. One is probably just my lack of understanding of a lot of the detail of what's happening here. I think you said that one alternative would be for us to take an equivalent amount of money from the development. Is that through the SIL?
No, that would be, we would take a commuted sum in lieu of the affordable housing. So instead of getting no affordable housing on site, we would take that equivalent to market value. The issue for us
what
with that...
What would we then do with that?
No, that's the issue for that is then what do we do with it?
Because we can't build houses ourselves.
No, so we have collected commuted sums previously, and there are some very small pots of that still left. Originally, we had a bidding process for registered providers to put forward schemes. This was in the days when we had the best part of £1 million of commuted sums that were accumulated with no schemes to support them. And some of that money, probably shouldn't say it in the course of this meeting, is the council has put into the Brook Road allotment site, which has had a contribution from those community sums of just over 500,000. That still left us with some money afterwards, and when we ran a second bidding round to register providers, we had no interest at all, and there were a couple of very small sites they looked at around garage blocks that then had issues about the opportunity and possibility of them getting planning permission and dealing with highways matters. So it's one of the reasons why we wouldn't recommend that approach to members, because it puts the onus on the council to work out what to do with the money, and if there were nice easy solutions to that, that wouldn't be a problem, but our experience to date has been it's challenging for us then to work out what best to do with the money.
Okay, thank you. Second question should be much shorter. Should be. You mentioned that this is already being discussed by the LGA and others.
Yeah.
Do we know if it's on Angela Rayner's desk yet?
I would be surprised if it isn't, but I can't. We'll probably find out more in what's in the King's speech tomorrow, won't we? But I think obviously, what the Labour government has said is that house building and increasing house building is going to be a high priority for them, and they've already indicated in press terms, targets they would like to achieve over the lifetime of the Parliament. So, to deal that, clearly, it requires an uplift to the amount of private sector housing that's being built, but also past experience has shown that you still need to make sure you're delivering affordable housing and meeting those at greatest needs alongside of it. So it rings a lot of bells in terms of the manifesto put forward by Labour, but I think we're still awaiting the detail of their announcements about what that will turn to in terms of policy and financial direction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wilby.
Thanks, Chair. Roger, unfair question. But you are the expert in this, and I read the papers and I listened to your articulation. On a scale of 1 to 10, where do you sit in terms of you are confident that this is the right way ahead?
On this particular one, I would go for 10. You know, we've explored that. The reason I say that is I wouldn't want to bring a report to this recommending a change until we had, in my mind, exhausted all those possibilities. There are other sites that we are still in discussion where the same issue is being put forward to us, where we are kicking back around those. And we might reach the stage where equally, you know, I would feel confident to bring a report to you saying, you know, this is the last resort available to us. On those, I'm not prepared to do that at the moment. And, you know, we will work as hard as we can to make sure we deliver you know, what's been put into that legal agreement. So it is with the deepest regret that we actually bring this report to you. Yeah, I wish we weren't having this conversation. And if there was any way of avoiding it, then we would have done this before bringing the report to you.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Given what Mr Ransom's just said, can I propose the recommendation as approval as per the recommendation in the papers?
You certainly can. Could I have a seconder for that? Councillor Corby, your hand up first. If there are no further questions, we have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.